Hey, dear Tyler. Good evening, and how are you doing? I hope you're good. I hope you're fine. So, apparently, I was really thinking that I may have a little bit more to say when it comes to the things that I learned this year, but somehow, I don't think it would be that concise, and it could just become, very bogus and probably repetitive. So, I was like, let me just go with what I originally wrote down and, share the final thoughts, the final 5 lessons that I learned, right? And I think it's actually a good point to share it, being like just a few hours to Christmas. And I really believe that, it would just be nice to be able to use these episodes, just to reminisce over the year and to get the best out of the year. So, to find out how you got the best out of the year and use it to also plan for the new year that's coming up, right? So this is going to be the second to the last episode for the year. I'm still going to drop one more episode before we enter into the new year. So somehow, I don't know, I'm still thinking maybe on the 30th or 31st or so, I'll definitely have an episode. And then by next year, we're going to start Dear Tyler Season 3, right? So our first episode is going to be January 2nd. That would be on a Monday, if I'm not mistaken. That should be on a Monday. So I'm sure it to be a nice time with everything. Really re-strategizing for a lot of things on Dear Tyler. And it's really going to be nice and fun, right? So let me just do like a little recap in the sense of just mentioning the things that I learned, from the past 3 episodes that I've done, and just mention them, right? The first thing that I learned was God is good. Plans work. Number 3, friends are valuable. Number 4, it's only impossible if you don't try. Then number 5, don't worry about the past, right? So you could find all of that in the part 1 of the Dear Tyler series, or of this series rather, right? So the part 1 of what I learned from 2022. Then number 6 is it's not as bad as you imagine. 7 is I'm not perfect. 8, I can't save everyone. 9, it's easy to become the monster you preach against. Then 10, everyone deserves a second chance, right? So that's in the part 2 where I discussed more on that. And then the last part, which is the part 3, the previous part rather. Number 11, don't inherit enemies. Number 12, love what you do, don't do it for love. Number 13, it's okay to not be celebrated. Number 14, know your kryptonite. Number 15, I am special. So in the previous episode that I just posted a few days ago, I think on Wednesday or so, I actually shared on those 5, right? So please check him out. It's really good. It's really helpful. A lot of people have reached out to me and told me that it has really helped them. For someone, it actually inspired her to actually, start reviewing her year and reviewing things, and it's helping her to fall into the right trajectory for the year ahead. So the final 5, right? So what we're going to discuss today. I'm actually preparing for a trip. I'm traveling tomorrow. That's how I am. I could be very somehow like travel during Christmas or something. But if you notice, like Christmas, especially in this part of the world, Christmas isn't as festive as before. Sadly, it's not as festive as before. It's not. It usually used to have this whole family theme around it, but I don't know, maybe because we've all grown and then the world has just changed in a way that everybody's just busy. There's no fanfare about Christmas, sadly. But anyway, I'm traveling tomorrow, so I got administration Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So hopefully all things will just work well. Anyway, but that's by the wayside. So number 16, right? The lesson I learned this year: live to bless and not impress. Live to bless and not impress. My uncle died last year. My uncle died last year. last year March. Died last year March. And March 1st, if I'm not mistaken. March 1st, died last year March 1st. And he was very close to me and my siblings. You get, it was his house that we grew up in while we were in Jos, even in Lagos for some time. We used to like chill at his place. And because of the nature of my dad's work, he was probably the more available figure to a large extent until my dad started having some free time. So because we're in Jos, he was also in Jos, and we had all of those connects. And if you've listened to my story on depression, you'll find out that I really had terrible seasons when it comes to school education and all. I really messed up in school, and it in a way dragged me. Do you understand? Like, it kind of like pulled me back for a while. But then he gave me a piece of advice, and he said that, Binga, you cannot impress anybody again, right? He said, that's not the goal. The goal is not to impress. Just surprise people and bless them. The goal is to bless people. The whole target of trying to impress someone is to just get you into a whole bunch of trouble. Now, it's something that I've learned because a lot of times people will do stuff for you, or you'll do stuff for people, and they would not even understand the value of what you're doing for them. And sadly, sometimes we also fall victim of that same attitude, where people do stuff for us and we don't tend to understand the value of it. Now, what really kills the individual more is that the purpose behind it. Somehow, whether looking for attention or whether looking for the accolades or the applause of the person you've done it for. And in many, many ways, it's not going to happen. And you see that a lot of people end up putting themselves in very, very difficult conditions, where they just overexert themselves on people or overexert themselves on an activity, for a worthy cause. But somehow, because we're all humans, deep within us, we would always want that person to acknowledge us or acknowledge our efforts and all, and they don't get it, and then it just leaves them in a very, very draggy state. That's one. And then again, they could have times where they're like, okay, maybe I need to do more for the person to recognize me or all of that. And I realize that it's not important. It's not. It shouldn't be the. It shouldn't be the main thing. I think that's the word. That shouldn't be the main thing. That shouldn't be the main purpose of your activities and all. Don't do things to impress anybody. Do it to bless them. Do it that at the back of your mind, irrespective of what happens, that individual is going to be blessed by it. Very important. So if I'm doing any activity or I'm doing something for someone, I do not really have any concern again to, let the person see me or let the person no. If it's good, then it should be done. Do you understand? And I'm going to do it from the depth of my heart because I value the person and I feel that it's going to be a blessing to that individual, right? So that's very, very important. Extremely, extremely important that we do that, right? So live to bless and not impress, right? So once you've blessed somebody, that should be able to satisfy you. Number 17, be mature. Now, maturity, most times a lot of people try to tag maturity to age or status, maybe like a leadership position or something like that. And so there's a whole lot of emphasis on elderly people or people in authority to be the mature ones, you get. And so we hold these people to a higher level of accountability, to some extent. And I realize that if you leave maturity to a select few, you'll just end up being in crisis. You'll end up being in a lot of crisis. Now, Now, what I've come to understand is maturity has nothing to do with age. It has absolutely nothing to do with leadership position, your status quo, or whatever pedigree that you may have. Maturity has to do with understanding that purpose is greater than being right. Your purpose is greater than being right. So it's not about justice for you. It's about the right thing to be done. Now, this year I've had quite a lot of instances where I was, either felt dishonored, disrespected or something, or I felt devalued to some certain point. And I did have moments of flaring up, moments of, wrong decisions and all. But gradually I had to learn that, I think I even shared it in one episode or so. I can't remember the episode exactly, but when I was talking about reaction and then responding, the truth is that a mature person would always look to find a solution to the problem. So there's a crisis, there's an issue, and a mature person would always try to resolve it not just for the immediate pacification, right, or the immediate pacifying of that whole circumstance, but then to find a long-lasting solution to everything. Now, I've learned that it's just important to be mature about everything. Choose to be the mature one in each conversation, right? And don't hold it against people that may be acting in an immature way or something like that, because probably you could fall victim of it at any point in time. Now, it's very important, like I said, that learn to be the mature one. Through any crisis, through any issue, through any challenge, be the person that gathers the thoughts together, be the one that gathers the team together, be the one that looks for the solution and not looks for who is at fault, right? Identifying the person at fault has little or nothing to do with bringing help. If it's best to find what the real challenge is and then fix it up, right? It's best to find the real challenge first and then fix it up afterwards, right? And then afterwards, then you could address it to the person in question, but then the person is not what is wrong. It's what they did that is wrong. Do you get? So always be the mature one. It's how crisis is managed, arguments and all of that is really, really managed. So that's one of the lessons that I learned again this year. Be the mature one in all aspects. Be the mature one. Number 18, be open. Now, this is a little bit ambiguous, but it's because I want to hit as many targets as possible, or maybe the two primary targets. Be open enough to let people know your frailties, your concerns, and your emotions. Now, there's something terrible about people like me, I guess. Whenever you've developed this large threshold for endurance, right? So some level of patience, forbearance, or as the Bible says, long suffering. When you've developed that particular attribute, what happens to you is that you end up piling it up, especially if you don't have a way of venting it out and releasing those things. You think you're over them, but they're just building blocks. And every container has its breaking point, right? It has its limit, it has its capacity to which you can carry certain things. Now, if you're not open enough to let people understand this, you actually put yourself in the position where you could one day flare up and do something that is absolutely out of it. Absolutely out of it in the sense that you would end up doing something that you would regret and you would want to take back. Number 2, if you don't tend to be open, what would happen to you is that you give people permission to keep on offending you. People that tend not to be open leave room for persistent offense. I had to learn that until I tell somebody what I don't like, they're justified in doing it. As painful as that sounds, as difficult as that sounds, right? If I don't tell somebody that I don't like something, that means my silence justifies their action. When I now tell them, and they're fully aware of maybe something I don't like or something that I need, something that I require, then they are now liable to be guilty by it, you get. So you can't sit down and assume that somebody understands your mood because of your countenance. Now, do you understand? Some other people don't operate that way. It's very, very different for them. And you've got to learn to be open. You don't have to be raw. You don't have to be uncultured in your talk or something like that. But you must find a way to be able to communicate your emotions, your intentions, and your displeasure. It's very, very important, right? I felt like people that used to, say things, just say the things how they felt. I really felt like they were people of very low self-control. But I've learned that it's more important than you can ever imagine, more important than you could ever think. And so I've learned to be able to be open and to say it. I've had instances, I think, probably times that I have to talk to my music team and all, yes. So there are times where naturally I'd want to just be quiet, but then I'll just have to say it so that if it happens again, they know that, okay, I know we're the ones at fault and everything. And I think they were like my training ground for some being, open to a large extent. It's something that I'm still learning and I'm trying my best to it, because I'm just somebody that naturally I avoid conflict, right? I hate confrontation or anything like that. So I always try to look for the easiest solution, that possible getaway moment. But I'm learning that it's very important to be open. Now, the second part of being open is that it's very important that you learn to be, that you're open enough to learn. Open enough to learn. Now, especially if you're a very knowledgeable person, if you're a very knowledgeable person and you have a lot of people that look up to you, somehow they reach out to you and they tell you that, oh, I look up to you for inspiration, oh, you've done this. It's very, very difficult to be open enough to be teachable. And I've had to learn that. I've had to sit down and see that, man, honestly, people are better than me at certain things. And sit down and just learn from them, Pinga. There's no big deal. Don't try to come up with some crafty way of just exempting yourself from that learning process or that learning curve. Put yourself in that position, learn, grow, exert every energy needed and required to become the best that you can be. Be teachable. So I started taking out time to learn from even people that made me feel uncomfortable. Learn from people online, people that I meet personally, just getting other people's opinion and putting it into my view and seeing how I can work it out into something practical. And it's one of the things that I learned. So being open to speak my heart to people and then being open enough to learn from others. It can sting when somebody tells you you're wrong and you're actually wrong. It can actually sting a lot. So it's a tough one, but yeah, we're getting over it. We're really, really getting better at it. Number 19, second to the last, you will always need God. Oh, 2022. Woo. You will what? Always need God. So this is where it comes from. When you become so good at something, right, you could have what I call the Samson syndrome. Now, over time, if you read the Bible, and you read the story of Samson in the Bible, it was because of the covenant he had with God, right, and about his hair, that whenever it was time to show forth strength, God remembered the covenant. Not necessarily the person, but then the covenant. Because Samson really, really messed up, did a whole lot of things, but then he remembered the covenant, right? And he would get strength to overcome any situation, get himself free, or just ridicule the enemy, right? Now, when he had given out the secret to his strength, the Bible made mention of something very particular. He said, I will arise. When the Philistines came over, he said, I will arise as I used to. So it had become such a common place for him that I believe that somehow he just felt like it's in me now. I'm Samson. Like God owes me something like that, with or without him. Like he's bound by me or something. Well, I think I suffered from that syndrome this year. And it was really towards the tail end of the year that I really realized that, man, God, I need you. I need you more than I could ever think. I need you more than I could ever imagine. I remember way back then, after I got born again, 2007, I got born again. And I used to ask the Spirit of God for everything. Like, okay, what should I wear? Where should I go? What should I do today? I was very, very meticulous about those things. And it looked childish, but that's the way, I believe. Like, be so connected to the Spirit of God that you can feel His heartbeat at all times, that you would feel empty if His hand does not go with you. You can become an expert at something so well that you really, really forget that there is a hand backing you. And so this year, I realized that I need God in everything. I will always need Him. Always need God. And so I had to tell myself the truth. And it's like, hey, young man, let's go back to the drawing board. Right? Go back to the drawing board. You will always need God. So everything that I've mastered, everything that I'm good at, everything that the Lord has helped me to gain some level of expertise, I've told myself, I'm like, hey, B, you're not going to act unless God's hand is upon you. Right? So even when it comes to pray, right, I pray for strength to pray. So if I start praying, I'm like, Spirit of the living God, I need you to help me pray. And I can see that I can stretch for longer periods of time. And if I get weary at any point in time, I'm literally like, Spirit of God, I'm really tired, I'm really weary, grant me strength. And I see Him coming through for me each and every time. And that's a major lesson that I learned. If I have learned any other thing, probably like the most important of all the lessons is this last one. Stick to the plan. Oh, dear Tyler, stick to the plan. So, I went over the plans that I had for this year. And I think I can start with financially, right? I went through my financial goals for the year and the plans, the objectives, the targets and everything that I put. Somehow along the line, I left it. And the moment I left it, there was no structure to my building financially. There was no structure to my growth. I could not evaluate certain things properly. And so what I realized is that I left the plan, I left the blueprint, and it became difficult for me. So let me give you an instance, right? I had a financial plan, I had a goal for my finances and everything. And along the line, I was hitting targets faster than usual. And instead of me to, stick to the plan and wait for some certain things, certain thresholds to be met, I just dumped the plan. I'm like, okay, I'm on a roll here. Let me see how I could, make the best out of it. And along the line, I had left the plan so bad that when things started going bad, it went really, really bad. And instead of me, building systemically, I was trying to recover from a major loss. And so I used the major part of this year to be recovering from a loss consistently. Now, if I had stayed with the plan, I would have done away with every loss, right, that I incurred at the beginning of the year. And I would have been at a stable point. I could even give instances for Dear Tyler. Every time that Dear Tyler, because I look at the metrics of Dear Tyler occasionally, just to find out how many people listen, and how much we're growing, right? The moment I started pulling out a plan and started following the plan for Dear Tyler, things started working out a lot more. I can promise you that there were times where I felt like, okay, the period where I had 100 listens. You can't imagine the pump, the drive that I had. Imagine having 100 people listen to your podcast in a day. You're just like a startup podcast. Imagine what you have been able to achieve. And I remember clearly how I wanted to, just start doing some other things. And I was like, no, guys, stick to the plan. And I was able to stick to the plan. And it has helped me to be able to evaluate, okay, how much I've come, my capabilities, my lapses and everything, and where I can work on. Now we're getting into the last week of the year, and for a whole lot of us, these are going to be moments that probably we evaluate the year, and then after evaluating, we're going to plan for the year. Now it's very important that whatever plans that you make, that you decide to stick to the plan. Stick to the plan. Stick to the plan. If you hit targets before time, that's amazing, that's beautiful, but then stick to the plan. If you feel that you have outgrown a certain plan, then replan and stick to that plan. Don't just wing it. Don't just think like you're on a roll and everything is just going on smoothly and there's no need for accountability even for yourself. No, stick to the plan. And it's something that I told myself that I'm going to do. I engaged in a certain business and I had to kind of like say, okay, I'm just going to stop. Even when I got some level of finances to help, I literally said that I'm not going to engage in the business now until I revisit the plan and then choose to stick to that plan. It's very important, right? It builds discipline. And discipline has a way of making you excellent at what you do, right? So like I said, for me, this is probably one of the most important lessons that I have learned in the year 2022. It's very, very important that you stick to your plans, right? Very, very important that you stick to your plans, right? If you've had plans before and that you didn't stay by them, don't beat yourself over it, repent, recollect yourself, and make that decision, right? On how you're going to do stick to your plan. So we've got one more episode. I don't know exactly when it's going to come out because of the series of ministrations that I do have, right? Like I said, I have from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then I should be heading back on Friday and probably want to have my retreat and all, right? So within that period, I'm going to kind of like switch off my phone and everything, just be away, lock up, and really, really try to focus on what's necessary, right? But we'll definitely have one more episode before the year runs out. And then we're revamping Dear Tyler on Instagram, right? We're really, really revamping Dear Tyler on Instagram. So please, if you're not following Dear Tyler on Instagram, please follow it, right? Just a little overview. I'm deleting all the posts on Instagram. We're building it in a better way, right? I'll archive all the posts that need to be archived and all, but then basically deleting the structure, coming up with new things to make it more engaging, right? And part of the things is how to come up with a plan for the year, right? So that's probably going to be part of the first episodes, right? And I'll show you how I came up with my own plan for the year and how you can also be able to do that. And it's going to be an amazing year, right? So I really hope that these 20 lessons were a blessing to you. For some of you, we may have similarities. Some of the points that I mentioned might be things that you might have learned. And for some of you, you might have learned some other things that I did not mention. But it's very important for you to keep these things so that you can use it to become a better person next year, right? To become a better person next year. So thank you so much for listening to Dear Tyler this evening. I really hope that it blessed you. So this is me signing out, Tyler. Remember that I love you, I believe in you, and I am always rooting for you. Do have a lovely day and Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Bye.